Hey everybody, we're here. I'm here with my sweet honey, Preston, and we are gonna talk a little bit about,
You want to tag me?
yes, I do want to tag you. Hey Rachel, I do want to talk about your perspective of, the day and maybe even leading up to the day when we found out about Phoebe. So one of the things I had talked about with them, I mean, you watched the videos.
Yeah.
But was that I felt like God kind of gave me some preparation.
Yeah.
Did you have any sense that there was anything different about this pregnancy?
No, only from you. I mean, I just
Okay.
watch you and listen to you, and I mean, the symptoms were different, but
Yeah.
the only knowledge I had was just through you. So that was it.
Yeah. Were you overwhelmed that we were having a sixth child?
Well, it wasn't an accident, so
Well, there's that. Yeah.
we weren't surprised.
No.
So it was planned, but I think when you look back at it, you ask yourself, what were we thinking?
We have a lot of kids.
But we did that after twins, and then we did it after the fourth one and the fifth one, and yeah, we do that about a lot of things now. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the like I would say, of course, you never regret, right?
no,
Never
there's
regret.
never regret.
I mean, there's not even a hint of regret with Phoebe.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
you learn more about yourself with every child,
Yeah.
and that's disturbing. The things you learn about yourself.
It is.
So
Yeah, so one of the things that I talked about was just the overwhelming feeling of inadequacy was one of the comments. So did you have that feeling that day when we got the diagnosis? Did you have that feeling of inadequacy?
Yeah, I just had a fear of the unknown, very vulnerable. I didn't know much about Down syndrome, and just, yeah, I was just overwhelmed with what are we going to do now? What's life going to look like now? And there was just a lot of unknowns, and unknowns can be very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of uncomfortableness.
Yes. Yeah.
And then you worry about, telling people.
Yeah.
And then you have to deal with their responses, and you have to deal with perceptions, and, those, especially in a church culture, where in a church culture, there's this big idea of healing, and, people want you to be healed, and I thought, well, there's no guarantee, that there's going to be healing, and
Or is it even something to be healed?
yeah, and sometimes I think in the church culture we ask for healing because things are just inconvenient, and we don't want to be inconvenient or uncomfortable, so it really comes out of a motive of as if we just don't like to be inconvenienced, and so
Yeah.
So there's all that. I mean, when you live and breathe in a church culture, you have to deal with, and then people are going to just say really ridiculous things in an effort to try to be helpful, I'm sure, but
Yeah.
you have to deal with that.
I mean, I think we both, I touched on it a little bit last night, I think, or the night before, about, when somebody tells you that they've had a difficult diagnosis, I'm sorry isn't always the best response, especially in the case with Down syndrome, I think. So, because it's not necessarily bad, but
Yeah. I mean, it's going to change
it's
your
not
world.
bad. Yeah, it's
but-
going to change our world. Yeah.
And I think that's what people have a hard time with. People have a hard time knowing that your life is about to change, which means your relationship with that person necessarily will change because the focus is going to be different. Your priorities will be different, and you're going to have all these people coming in your house every week. You got therapists coming in. You got occupational therapy. You got early childhood intervention. You got speech therapy. You got physical therapists, and they're coming into your life, and whether you want it or not.
Yeah.
So your life is going to change, and I didn't know what that looked like. So
yeah, there was just so much unknown in that moment. I think that first day.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, we'll talk about more of as the days went on and how we processed it. And you had said we were kind of debriefing on what we were actually going to say tonight. But you had said...
Which I never know what I'm going to say.
Yeah. But you had said that you didn't... All you knew really that day was things are going to change.
Yeah.
That was like the overwhelming... Like we had been hit by a bus. That's what she said.
Yeah. There's a tsunami coming.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah. And I think that there is... I think most people that are in our Down syndrome tribe would agree that when you get the news, it's just this overwhelming... What? Like, you know...
What does that mean?
What does that mean? What, you know, how is this going to change our life? And a lot of that is there's so much variation in the Down syndrome spectrum. So you get all of this event. I'm going to talk about this next week, but you get all of this information, all of the what ifs, you know, like these might happen. And there's so many.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just like crippling. And so whether you get your diagnosis prenatally or when you meet your child, the might happens are crippling. And so one of the things we had talked about, I wanted to talk to everybody about what her name was, or how we chose Phoebe's name, and and understand that before we met her, this was, you know, what we really felt so strongly was her name. So we had actually, going into the ultrasound, we did have a girl's name picked out, and it was Fiona, right?
We had 3 names picked out.
Yeah, but Fiona was the one that we were really kind of leaning towards. Yeah. And so when they told us about Phoebe, it was like all of a sudden it wasn't right anymore. Like it just, right? Like I just thought that's not the name.
Yeah.
And so I remember specifically driving home. Yep. You remember when I was the first time when we first talked about the name Phoebe, that's when your back was so bad, and we were driving home from Tennessee.
I had a herniated disc.
Yeah, it was so bad.
L4,
So I don't
recommend that.
I was nauseous, pregnant with Phoebe, and we had been up in Tennessee visiting family, and we were trying to get home. His back was so bad, and he couldn't sit. So he was like not legally sitting. I was driving, and I'm like feeling awful, and it was awful. We've got our 5 kids in the back, and he is like turned around, and so yeah, you were in the floorboard. Anyway, It was a bad time. But I just remember this so vividly that you said, what about the name Phoebe? And this was, you know, a couple months before we got the diagnosis. And I was like, I kind of like that. And you looked it up. And so we just kind of were like, yeah, that's a possibility. But by the time we got to the ultrasound, we had kind of settled on Fiona. And so so after that, it just wasn't right. And so we're driving home. And I think it was like, no, actually, we weren't even driving. I don't even think
we were driving.
Yeah, we were driving, but I don't even think we got to the chiropractor. It was like the first thing we talked about when we got in the car, I think, was the name. And I think you said, well, what about Phoebe? And I went, I really liked it. Like, it just felt so right. And so I said, well, let me look up the meaning again, because we always like to know the meaning for our kids' names. And so I looked it up, and the meaning is bright, shining one. And we were just like, that's it. Like there was no question. We knew that was her name. And
we started crying.
We cried, yeah. We cried all day. That's why I said it was a day of tears.
We cried off and on for more than one day.
Yes. So.
And then the middle name.
Yeah. So then we got home. I know it was when we got home, and I think you were typing an email.
Yeah.
To tell our church, and
came home and wanted to inform the church.
And I sat down next to you, and you said, "What do you think about Phoebe Hope?" And I was like, "That's it. That's it." Like right away, we knew that was it. Like it embodies everything that she is.
Yeah.
She is a bright, shining one, and she is hope. And the word hope had actually been like my theme word the year before. And so it really meant a lot to me at that time too. So anyway.
And then you named your business after that.
I did.
Lighted Up Nails.
Yes, so
bright, shining one.
I did. I named it after her, and because she has been such a light in our life. Even though there are challenges, there are challenges. That's the reality of it.
Yeah.
But she is just a grace to us. Like
she's happy.
She is happy.
She puts us all to shame. She's just the incarnation of happiness, and we just discovered through her that we're just not all that happy most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Don't really have a good excuse, but she's brought a lot of happiness. And we've seen how it's affected our other kids, and it's made them softer, more sensitive towards others who are not what the world calls normal. So
so she's been a blessing, and so that's what I said. This story it ends with what it is now, which is joy. She is a joy to us. And so we're gonna take a break from lives this weekend, and then come back on Monday. And I actually have lots to talk about. Imagine that. You're not surprised, right?
She may invite me back.
I will invite you back, because there are some things I definitely want to talk about. Preston wrote a poem, so
that's how I deal with stuff.
Yeah, he writes.
I write poetry.
He writes, and I
write and I cry.
Yeah.
So poetry, crying, poetry, more crying.
Yeah. So, and I talk. So that's part of this is very therapeutic to me.
I used to not talk.
Well, I talk it out with you.
Oh, sure.
Or I talk to you all the time. Right. Or my mom, or my friends. Like, I have to talk things out, and so I'm just doing it on a bigger scale now. So, thank you guys for watching. Did you want to say anything else?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So we will come back next week. I want to share with you Preston's poem, and just kind of talk about how we processed preparing for Phoebe for her arrival. And I want to tell you about all the amazing things that God did.
I'll read you the email I sent to the church.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's good. So we're going to just share it all with you guys, whether you like it or not. So thanks for watching, and I hope you guys have a great weekend. We're very thankful for all of you. Please comment. If you're watching the replay, please comment #replay on the bottom so we know that you were here. And thanks for watching. Good night.
See ya.